Acolytes. We start with an unholy... Well, look. The trans woman continues to implode. From Sydney, West End. And I am happy to hear that she specifies the trans movement, not the people around it, because I know a handful of those people, or some that actually did their due diligence. They didn't just slap some woman's clothing on them with a full beard and then went out and told they are a pretty girl. They actually went to the entire shebang. And now they look actually quite feminine. But they had to suffer for years. So those normal people, I actually respect. The movement itself, not a big fan. Really not a big fan here, acolytes. But hey, it is what it is. Oh, and by the way, my videos get actually suppressed because I didn't confirm my address right now. That's actually quite funny. Something interesting. And I am waiting for the confirmation per post. It takes a long while, so... it went so good, acolytes. Still need a boost here. But let's just... okay, let's continue.
I'm a trans woman, and I'm proud.
I want to introduce Grace Thomas. She's a local civil rights attorney. She's a Democrat. Grace?
They, them pronouns, actually. Thank you.
Oh, a toddler
instantly kick her out. Fuck it, don't talk to her.
Was suspended from a nursery after they were accused of being transphobic.
We must go into the toilets in numbers and say, we are here, we are queer.
Those are freaks.
Where I saw at the end of my row a biological male watching not only myself, but the other young women undress.
I was removed from my varsity girls team and replaced by a newly eligible male transfer student.
A 7-year-old woman who impersonated a high schooler was sentenced to jail today.
Oh my god, it's day 1096 of being a girl. It's year 3, and that's me on a billboard in Times Square.
Get out of my face now!
I was misgendered. Even when I complained, saying, look, I am not a man.
Mom, come pick me up. I'm scared. Hi, my name is Sid.
Okay, and by the way, if somebody like this goes at you, it's still a man. They can F you up. Even if it's by any circumstance, by somehow, acolytes, just hitting you on the back of the head. Per pure unluck, you could suffer a lifetime. That's why this stuff is dangerous.
Sydney, welcome back to hell. And as per usual, before we launch in, today's video is sponsored by Lumen and by my company, Lions Tea Exchange.
Oh, I just misheard her. I actually heard the book of... Mein Kampf, for fuck's sake.
Spring/summer flavors are finally available on the website right now for pre-sale. I actually asked a handful of lovely repeat customers to taste test these blends, so a big thank you to all of you for your input. We have root beer, which everyone seemed to love, which actually kind of surprised me, but it genuinely tastes like root beer. We have
Please.
Of white peach, strawberry lemonade, this one is actually my personal favorite, and mango black, which one of my lovely taste testers said is the best black tea that he's ever had. So that's honestly really epic. Anyway, go and check them out. I will link everything in the description box. And as usual, thank you so much for all the support. It means...
See, this is the thing. If you're not getting paid for advertisement, this is a pretty short, on-point one. I like this. This is fine. And I'm just gonna listen a bit. Thank you for to sponsoring it. Oh, so there will be a Lumen pre-order spring summer tea. Gonna check that one out, acolyte.
The world. So towards the end of February, I talked about the collapse of the transgender movement and all of the moving parts that led us to this point. If you haven't watched that video, I suggest going and doing so because it kind of sets the stage for this video. But since making that piece of content, so many things have happened, and the explosion of this movement has only accelerated and gotten bigger. And over the last 2 months or so,
I'm gonna find the video and post it if I don't and link it, and if I don't forget, because the context could be important if she says. But I think that most of us acolytes know what the F is.
Saved so many things that I wanted to show you all that just illustrates how rapidly all of this is declining.
Probably heard about this Supreme Court's ruling on the definition of the word woman.
Good.
This will have some real serious implications.
Good, by the way. I loved the definition of a woman in the court case. It was on point, freaking good. So literal freaks like this cannot claim this shit anymore. Good, at least there in Britain.
It will have some consequences, but I want to tell you one thing.
See, instantly, not even freaking 10 seconds in its video, and already going in and drawing everybody. Drawed everybody. For fuck's sake, honestly.
They can make their laws, they can specify their definitions, but there's one thing that they'll never be able to take from me, and that's who I am. I'm a trans woman, and I'm proud.
A toddler was suspended from a nursery after they were accused of being transphobic or homophobic. I just cannot believe this. The Department of Education data revealed the child is either 3 or 4 years old. A Department of Education spokesman said all pupils and staff should feel safe. I can't believe I'm reading this. Should feel safe and protected at school.
As I previously mentioned, the transgender movement and its weird conjoined cousin sister, the gender ideology movement, have basically both gotten their creepy little tentacles around every single institution, whether it be political, social, or even medical. And it's basically created an environment where everyday normal people are being forced to conform to a worldview that they don't even agree with. We have definitely learned over the last...
Yeah. That's true, on point. Normal people, the words are perfect, on point, because this is just something that no normal thinking human being would agree with. Nobody. This pure toxicity is just effed up.
Last decade or so that absolutely nothing is safe. Not women, not our spaces, not the language surrounding us, and sadly, and maybe even the worst of all of this, definitely not kids. So having previously laid out how we got here, I wanted to spend some time showing you some of the pushback that we are now seeing, both big and small. Because it is all culminating in the explosion of a movement that probably should have stayed on Tumblr. So let's start with the biggest, most recent, and most obvious thing. In mid-April 2025, the UK Supreme Court made a definitive ruling that the terms woman and sex in the Equality Act refer only to biological women and to biological sex, not gender ideology or gender recognition certificates. This was decided unanimously by 5 judges.
We were in a really difficult place in Scotland then. We thought we were going to see rights for women rolled back, and today the judges have said what we always believed to be the case, that women are protected by their biological sex, that sex is real, and that women can now feel safe, that services and spaces designated for women are for women, and we are enormously grateful to the Supreme Court for this ruling.
I am genuinely so happy that women in the UK are finally seeing themselves supported. But you know, it isn't only women who need support. Your buddy does as well, which is why today's video is sponsored by Lumen. Is your sleep kind of terrible?
Yeah.
Yes, it is. How did you know? Because you look awful. Hey, do you
Fair
ever
enough.
find yourself wondering why
I
you
love her
can't
sketches,
lose
by the
weight?
way.
Or do you just sometimes feel kind of run down for no reason? What if I told you there was a way you could improve your quality of life and better understand
way,
your
how?
body? Well, there is, and it's called Lumen. Lumen is the world's first handheld metabolic coach. This device measures your metabolism through your breath. And using the app, it tells you if you're burning fat or carbs and then offers tailored guidance so you can improve your sleep, nutrition, workouts. It even tailors advice around menopause and hormonal shifts for the ladies. In the morning.
I think I already said my piece about this one, that I don't find it particularly useful, just to be honest. I mean, the thing is about this, I mean, it's a nice luxury article, I guess, but can it be that precise just because of the breath? I mean, for most people, I think acolytes, it's more or less on point, maybe if you just get a certain, well, just a nudge in the correct direction, so I don't know.
Of your life and your health, then click the link in the description or go to lumen.me/Sydney15 for 15% off your Lumen. Once again, that's lumen.me/Sydney15 for 15% off your purchase.
Well,
This ruling obviously has a ton of implications, the biggest being that trans-identified males can now legally be excluded from female-only spaces.
Good.
This is obviously a massive
Good.
change from the absolute mess that we saw only last year when an Australian federal court judge...
And by the way, I have nothing against if a trans person went through the entire shebang and then gets to use the toilet, because then it's, in my opinion, the metamorphosis is done, it's fine, it's acceptable. But if the fucker just goes in, puts on a dress, and then says, yeah, I am a female, by being about 3 times bigger than the normal female, and then staring at them like a freak, then I have something against it.
Ruled that a female-only app called Giggle discriminated against a trans-identified male called Roxy Tickle by not allowing Tickle to join the app, the said app. The judge in the case literally stated, in its contemporary ordinary meaning, sex is changeable. No, sir. No, it is not. It really does go to show that so much changes in such a short space of time. At least British women are in fact considered women again. Aussies, not so lucky. Anyway, after the UK Supreme Court ruling, things definitely moved quite rapidly. We had absolutely stellar headlines like this. Rapists can no longer claim to be women. Well, that's a comfort, isn't it? I know on the surface this seems really dumb and like a return to common sense, but unironically this is a good thing given how crime statistics have been skewed, given how many men commit crimes and then say that they're women after committing the crime. I'm sorry that it's a thing, but it is.
It is, and by the way, why is it so? Because it works, acolytes. Those are people who I wouldn't even dare to make an undead servant. Not even their body, because it's so disgusting. But hey.
Just another symptom of how icky everything is. It'll also hopefully stop all of these stupid headlines that erroneously report that a woman committed a crime when that woman did, in fact, have some of the dingle-dangles.
A 27-year-old woman who impersonated a high schooler was sentenced to jail today.
Prosecutors say on December 12th, Craig emailed the Albany School District and claimed her name was instead Madison, that she was 15 and homeless, and planned to enroll herself into the district.
This is not a female, in case that wasn't clear. Do you guys ever sometimes listen to the news where they're referring to a male as she and just think,
is anybody else seeing this shit right now? They stepped into a parallel fucking universe or something.
We then had a bunch of females who identify as men making vaguely threatening TikToks saying that they'd be going into women's bathrooms and making women feel uncomfortable. We of course had an onslaught of crying TikToks too. And this video where this person basically wrote a love letter to using the women's bathroom.
I love the women's bathroom. I love taking a break on a night out to spend 20 minutes in the toilets talking to girls I don't know. The tiled walls feel like momentary protection from the outside world. An equal playing field for women of all heights, weights, ethnicities and religions.
Dude, we're just trying to pee and not make eye contact with each other as we leave the bathroom. I have been a woman my entire life, and I have never experienced this perverse fascination with the bathroom. I hate the lines, I hate having to wait, and I hate the fact that usually there's like 3 cubicles and only 1 toilet actually works. But sure, go off, King. Then there were, of course, the protests, where the usual suspects demanded access to women's spaces.
We must take back the streets. March every single day. Stand outside the government.
You could do so. Hi everyone, I am a very proud disabled trans woman, even though it doesn't look like it. I was misgendered, and they said they had to misgender me. Even when I complained, saying, look, I am not a man, they continued to misgender me.
I am not gonna go there. I will not tempt the YouTube gods, but I think that The Office has me covered on this one.
I'm gonna kill myself! Wow. I'm going to kill myself, and it's your fault!
We had trans activists losing it on live television. This individual, who is, yes, of course, a they, them, walked off set after saying, I feel unsafe because on a previous episode, the host had made comments this person didn't like.
I would rather share a bathroom with 100 trans women than one legal biological woman who wants to know what's inside my pants. And Julia, if I'm right in remembering, you did ask me what my genitals look like once live on TV.
I think that was in the context of a conversation and you raised that issue yourself.
I remember the quote. You don't have dangly bits, do you? So do you want to discuss dangly bits or not? Because frankly, I am now feeling in a position where I'm in a room with you and I feel unsafe. Yeah.
You feel unsafe?
I feel unsafe. I feel my heart racing. My hands are starting to sweat. Do you want to touch my hand?
This is... I feel unsafe. Touch my hand. Oh, for F's sake. I am so happy that the pendulum just swings in the correct direction. It's just... I am so happy that freaks like this just get shafted. Slowly but surely acolytes. Oh, those aren't even body parts that you could use for some freaking abomination. Useless.
Would you want to plan me now? And I actually think I'm about to have a panic attack from sitting in a room with you, so I'd like to leave now. Yeah, said my piece, and now I'd really like to go.
I thought we were actually
I love this woman.
into a mic there. I thought we were going to have a conversation. I'd like to go. You'd like to go? Okay, I wouldn't want anyone to feel unsafe being asked questions.
So the monumental freakout with relation to this newest ruling has, of course, done absolutely nothing to help the trans movement and its weird conjoined sister cousin, the gender ideology movement. It hasn't pushed anyone further towards the movement/ideology, and it hasn't helped anybody empathize. The threats, the tantrums, the individuals continually insisting that they should have access to female spaces and likeness has only pushed other people further away. And it's really...
The thing is, it definitively got a lot of people initially, and then it started to push people away. Because you have to know that this movement, it was never different. It was always this thing, this abomination that it is now. It just got way worse after a while. People just got, oof. Honestly, way too comfortable shafting other people for absolutely no reason, just because they disagree with it. And we just have to cut this comfort down. So yeah.
Emblematic of what's happening all over the place, because like I mentioned in the last video that I made about this, people have really had enough. Some of you might remember all the times I've told you about the politicians betraying us in order to appear more progressive and tolerant, quickly adopting dehumanizing language about women, supporting insane practices and policies that hurt women, and some of these politicians are continuing to do this, continuing to push all of this insanity today. But it has really...
And it worked. The fact is, this worked for a long while. It just worked. If it didn't work, we wouldn't be in the situation we are right now. Now would we?
Really been fascinating to watch just how many of them have suddenly flipped the script on the trans movement and gender ideology when they realized that this entire thing was falling massively out of favor. It's almost like they do things in order to get reelected and don't stand for anything ever. Wow.
Wow.
In the UK's case, when England's Prime Minister Keir Starmer, which I feel like I'm saying incorrectly.
You're saying it right.
Starmer?
Keir Starmer.
Starmer. In the UK's case, when England's Prime Minister Keir Starmer was asked if he still believed transgender women are women, he answered that the Supreme Court has been clear that women are adult human females, and he welcomed the judgment.
Do you believe a trans woman is a woman?
Look, I think the Supreme Court has answered that question.
So you don't believe a trans woman is a woman?
Look, a woman is an adult female, and the court has made that absolutely clear. I actually welcome the judgment because I think it gives real clarity. It allows those that have got to draw up guidance to be really clear about what that guidance should say.
As a surprise to probably none of you, only a few short years ago, Starmer insisted trans-identified males are women if they believe themselves to be.
Well. How the turntables...
This closely mirrors what we saw and continue to see here in the United States after Trump's executive orders were signed. Those that banned men from women's sports, trans surgeries on minors, and defined sex as binary, male and female. In early March, for example, Gavin Newsom, arguably one of the most progressive Democratic politicians, said during a discussion on his podcast that men in women's sports is unfair.
So like you right now should come out and be like, you know what? The young man who's about to win the state championship in the long jump in female sports, that shouldn't happen. You as the governor should step out and say no.
No, and I appreciate
but like, would you do something like that? Would you say no men in female sports?
Well, I think it's an issue of fairness. I completely agree with you on that. So that's easy to call out, the unfairness of that. There's also a humility and a grace, that these poor people are more likely to commit suicide, have anxiety and depression. And the way that people talk down to vulnerable communities is an issue that I have a hard time with as well. So both things I can hold in my hand. How can we address this issue?
I always find these types...
Yeah, so he basically a nothing burger. Again, dodge the question.
Types of comments so interesting because they love to talk about empathy, except they never apply that same empathy to the women who are asking to have single-sex spaces. Be empathetic, Jessica. Look at the testicles. Ball sacks are the new boobs, Linda. Get used to it.
I can feel it in my scrot.
Is scrotum less offensive sounding than ball sack? I apologize. I apologize for being crude. Anyway, seemingly only a few days later, former Montana Senator, that's hard to say quickly, Jon Tester, made similar comments on Bill Maher's show. He essentially stated that men don't belong in women's sports, despite his voting record demonstrating exactly the opposite. Ain't that always the way?
In that statement, Gavin Newsom's 100% correct. We're talking about a very, very, very small number of people who, by the way, men shouldn't be playing in women's sports. It's a bunch of crap.
Oh, another Democrat saying it.
Yeah.
In Newsom's case, he was obviously attacked by the super progressives in his own party, but a handful of Democrats came out to support him, surprisingly. Namely, Seth Moulton, who had actually said on a number of previous occasions politicians how unfair it is having men compete against women in sport. In an interview about Newsom's comments, Moulton said more and more are willing to say what they've probably always thought, and that's a good thing. So it seems to me that some politicians are realizing, finally, that they're on the wrong side of this issue. Although, depressingly, that hasn't stopped the rest of them from voting no to keeping men out of women's sports, so thank you for that. If you guys want to have a laugh about this, the stupidity here is to the extent that former CNN host Chris Cuomo, of all people, is begging these politicians to pick another hill to die on because even the majority of Democratic voters, don't support this. So as per usual, do with that information what you will. So putting aside those on the progressive side of the aisle for a moment, I am noticing that more and more right-leaning politicians are also starting to act out. One clip I found that I wanted to show you all was a moment from a recent hearing where Texas Representative Keith Self, that's a good name, referred to a trans-identified male serving in government as Mr. McBride.
I now recognize that
Now, I already know that some of you are going to find this needlessly cruel, and honestly, I can objectively understand that position. I have heard many a person argue that this type of behavior erodes overall societal decency. And while I know that most politicians are doing these sort of things performatively, both on the left and the right, don't judge me for saying this, but seeing this sort of thing play out actually feels a little cathartic. And the reason I say that is because I am a woman. I have lived my entire life as a woman. I am the daughter of a woman, and I don't believe that some person, any person, gets to put on a dress and a bit of lipstick and makeup and then demand that everybody around them treats them as a woman when they are not one. Again, being a woman is...
I agree with that statement. And unnecessarily cruel? No. It always depends on the target person. If the person itself behaves like a freak and you treat them as cruelly as they do to you, I don't care how cruel and unnecessary it is. I do not give a single F. On the contrary, I am happy that cruel people get shafted. That's very, very nicely done. If you have somebody that actually acts normal, that's a different story. But those freaks don't act normal, and we shouldn't pretend that they act normal and treat them like royalty just because they freak out. No. Give them what they deserve. So I don't care. The senator was on effing point treating that person the way he
is
did.
not a feeling. It is not superficial things like long hair and makeup and dresses and high heels. It is something that is coded into every single cell in our bodies. And as much as modern society wants to tell us otherwise, if you are not female, if you are not born female, you do not know what that is like. The people who claim to know and relate to all of this and understand what it is have simply never had to go through the unique challenges associated with being a woman, especially those that are associated with, I don't know, having female anatomy. So I find myself exhausted by all of the pretending, especially when we're doing it at very, very high government levels. So while I absolutely understand those of you who do not like this behavior and do not think it should take place, I would counter that by saying that people like the Representative McBride that we've been discussing here.
By the way, I won't even say that the people who dislike this behavior dislike it for a normal reason. I understand it. I know where you're coming from because normally I am on the same position. But in this case, nah. Exception to the rule.
Are participating in a movement that has actively and needlessly hurt women and girls. And
Yes.
I know I'm not alone.
And not just girls, by the way. Not just girls. Also very, very young men. Because do not forget the young men that actually got mutilated by this movement. And it doesn't just... for the most part it hits women, but also young children. This
And
unacceptable.
feeling this way because every time I turn around, I see a new story about women pushing back or politicians starting to change their tune. Of course, there are politicians in Western countries particularly who cling to all of this, reading transgender children's books, fighting to change the word mother to inseminated person in legislation.
Ugh.
That last one is particularly asinine. Who even thought of that? Seriously, how much do you have to hate your own mum to think of the term inseminated person and then put that forward in legislation? Like, I've heard of mummy issues, but this is taking it to a whole new level. But with all of that said, I think that these moments actually represent the death rattle of this movement. Because what these politicians and these activists and allies and so on don't seem to understand is that the more that they push this type of thing onto the rest of us, the more that they act performatively about this entire issue, the less and less support that they have, the more and more that people turn away, and the angrier and angrier that normal people get. And it shows. We have more and more women every month saying no to men in female sports and female spaces, whether it is women who refuse to participate and compete against trans-identified competitors, or young women speaking out at school board meetings.
Recently, I went into the women's locker room to change for track practice, where I saw at the end of my row a biological male watching not only myself, but the other young women undress. This experience was beyond traumatizing. I must add, he is not changing in our locker room, because he's in his track clothes dressed and ready to go to practice at the beginning of the day.
I was removed from my varsity girls team and replaced by a newly eligible male transfer student who received favorable treatment. In late October, the male transfer student was given my spot after not being held to the same strict team requirements as me and the rest of the girls. He did not have to attend practice while my team and I were running 7 miles a day together. After having my spot taken away from me that I earned, I missed out on running with my varsity team in one of the top cross-country invitationals of the season.
A child psychiatrist called Alan Josephson very recently won a $1.6 million settlement from the University of Louisville, I'm sure you guys are going to yell at me in the comments for that, after the institution fired him in 2019 for criticizing the use of hormone therapy and gender reassignment surgery in children, which I have to imagine will only set the stage for similar lawsuits in the future. People, once again, very recently...
Good. Make it. Do it. Those lawsuits should go rampant. Good.
The insanity of two
And by the way, I hate the court system, so...
trans-identified males being finalists for the Women's Pro Pool Series in early April in the UK. Yes, not a woman in sight, and of course, the internet exploded over this. Anyway, the point here is that through all these examples, we can see that things are absolutely changing. And as we culturally shift away from the aggressive normalization of gender ideology, more and more people obviously are feeling more comfortable expressing what they actually think. That this is not okay. And honestly, to see, particularly with relation to children, people from across the political spectrum come together and unite with this one issue is honestly really heartening. I do believe, and I continue to believe, that it was absolutely absurd that a bunch of judges had to rule in the first place that women are biological females and entitled to our own spaces. But given how the last decade or so has gone,
The thing is, there is no reason in actually crying about it. Finally, something's getting done about it. And I am happy that I was one of the people that from the start were against it. Against this movement. Ah, it feels so good. Years, acolytes. Years.
I'm glad that this has once again been established. Even if they're doing it for votes down the line, I'm also glad to see more politicians speaking up and speaking out about this. And I'm also so glad to see more and more young women stand up for themselves in the face of overwhelming odds. Ultimately,
Yes.
I'm not so sure that I can wrap up this topic with a neat little bow, but what I can tell you is that this is only the beginning. This is not the end. We are going to see more and more and more pushback as time wears on, as people get more and more and more sick of this. This is only the beginning. And I guess in the end, we will all be here with our popcorn to witness it. Now on that note, and before I open the floor to all of you, this is just a reminder to check out Lumen using the link in the description or scanning QR code on screen. I genuinely love my Lumen. I actually use it. So if this is something that you are interested in, definitely check it out and have fun being a healthy person. Now I open the floor to all of you. What do you all think? Are you on my side of this issue where you find a lot of the blowback to be quite cathartic? Are you on the other side of the issue where you think that it's mean-spirited and kind of unkind to react like this? Do you think...
Oh, so it's... Okay, no, I actually expected the other side of the issue being the pro things that she... But no, finding it kind of mean reacting like this. I mean, as I said, I find it fair enough if you think that the way that's going right now is mean, but I just think it's necessary. That's all.
I think that it's absurd that we had to have judges rule on this biological women thing in the UK.
No, the thing is that it even went so far that we even have to do it. That's the point.
Hey, do you think that it's fair? Do you think that it's unfair? Do you think that this entire thing continues to be blown out of proportion and it's not that big of a deal in the first place? What do you think of the politicians who are now backtracking on their own voting records and the things that they've said previously? Do you think that it's right? Do you think that it's wrong? And what do you generally make of this issue overall? As always, if you have made it this far in the video, congratulations. I always like having you along for the full ride. If you are new here and you're not subscribed already and you would like to see more of me and more of this kind of content, feel free to subscribe to the channel, as well as leaving this video a like and a comment because I do read the majority of them and I like hearing your feedback. Of course, in the interim, please stay safe and well and make good choices.
Yeah. In the end of the day, just to wrap it up, I agree with her. It's just so good to hear that this stuff actually gets addressed finally, step by step. First we get back to normality and then we can actually try to, well, hopefully evolve our entire thinking to a more positive, well, kind of way. But we will see. Time will tell, acolytes. As it is right now, good night.